I don't even know what the subject chart for today, so this will be exciting.
Hey guys, what's up? I hope you enjoyed that intro of clapping. That's for you guys. Welcome to the TCG Scrubs Podcast, episode 99. 99 of these things that we've done, and a good chunk of you. Hold on, a good chunk of you have sat through them and listened. I don't know if you sat through the whole thing, or through most of it, or through a chunk of it, or 10 minutes. Who knows? But thank you.
How many people do you
listening?
think?
So the clapping was for you guys for hanging out with us.
Yeah, it was.
That's what the clap
That's
was
what it was
for.
How many people do you think have actually watched every single podcast episode? Like,
to be honest, I'm gonna say none of them have seen every episode, but I'm sure there's somebody who's seen 60 of the episodes at least.
I'd say there's at least one person who's seen, even if they had to go back to our original completely terrible podcast, they probably
God, I hate those. They're still there. I hate them so much.
They're so bad.
They're never going anywhere. Also, for our Twitch viewers, I like, if you look on Twitch, it's a cool little stacking because of how OBS shows to Discord. So Oscord's like big, and then Joey's smaller, and then I'm smallest at the end. It's pretty great.
Yeah. So welcome to episode 99. Again, like last week, we're going to attempt streaming while capturing the audio, so that way you can tune in live if you want to Thursday nights at 10-ish p.m. Central.
It might be earlier.
Give or take 20 to 30 minute type range. And then you can also just check it out on Saturdays on YouTube and on SoundCloud or wherever you listen to podcasts that you've been listening to already at better audio quality. We had some issues last week. Joe's computer kind of gave up on him at some point, which ended his recording, which meant I couldn't use the recording Colin and I captured, which meant I had to use the stream. But when I use the stream, Colin didn't turn off the echo thing that he has. I think some stereo setting, right? That's what it is. So there was this echoey sound. It was a huge mess.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it again this week, but here we are. We're doing it again.
I'm pretty sure I'm all good because I updated my BIOS and I'm like 90% sure that was actually the issue and not anything else that I was guessing at. So I'm pretty sure we're good. Huh? Yeah. We'll find out.
Episode 99, like Colin said, we were going to do some cool stuff for the 100th episode. I was going to do a Q&A. Like, you guys just ask whatever, but nobody asked anything, so I don't know what we're doing episode 100. Colin, go for it. Bring some special guests. Do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, Oscar shot down my ideas, so
he's like, we need to bring a bunch of people on here, and anything over one starts stressing me out. I'm like, why do we have so many people? Like, I think you know what it is? It just brings back those flashbacks to those first 3 episodes of the podcast, 2 episodes of the podcast where we had 8-7 people on here just trying to do something. And it wasn't even about
obviously we wouldn't have a bunch of people on at once. You get out of here.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, you are now, I'm going to pass, you're in charge of next week's podcast, what it's going to be about and content and who's on it. You figure it out, make sure it lines up to the time we normally record at, since that works for the 3 of us. And we'll see what happens next week. So next week is a complete mystery to even me. And I usually like to be in somewhat of control of what's going on here, since this is
going to come back and it's going to be like,
project.
hey, look, it's the Godzilla podcast.
they're, you know what? Somebody who's listening to this,
a bunch of Godzilla YouTubers.
Who would you most like to have Godzilla on a card? Does that give you flashbacks, Oscar?
Yeah, that Patreon podcast. I was about freaking Avengers.
Golf. Yeah, that was a good one until Oscar's like, what if I just didn't play along? Wow, it's bad now that I'm not playing along at all. Weird how that works. Like,
I was in it for 10 seconds.
This car sucks. It's going to crash. I'm just not going to drive it. See, it crashed. That was weird.
I was in it Oscar. I was in it for a minute, and then I was like, yeah, I'm not feeling this anymore.
That's the story of Oscar's life.
Anyways, so yeah, next week's episode 100 episodes of this. We've had video for most of it, right? Or at some point we start doing video?
I think we had video like the second episode.
Yeah, it's pretty much been like pretty much all the time.
Do you guys like video? Like listeners, you can comment, message, tweet, whatever.
Well, the listeners don't care about video, but the watchers might like video.
The listeners, viewers, the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, we have a.
Wait, guys. I might have to restart this because I've been recording desktop audio the whole time.
It's fine. We'll use my audio.
It's fine.
Just switch it now.
Stop it. I turned it off.
Okay, turn it off. Okay, cool.
Okay.
I'll see
We
who
just
has
keep
the better
going.
one, because actually me and Jay were recording earlier, and he had all his settings perfectly lined up for it, so it might actually be really good audio. Anyways, we actually didn't do intros, so like you guys want to help support us, everything we do here, patreon.com/TCG Scrubs. And I messed that up during our video. I did TCG Scrubs.com or TCG Scrubs/Patreon when I was saying it. But
and we just restructured the Patreon tiers to make it a little bit more clean and more beneficial to people who are above or at the $5 tier and above. So the $1 tiers still get access to our mini Patreon podcast each week, but any other video content we do, which is going to be hopefully a pretty consistent extra 2 to 3 videos per week on top of the mini podcast, will be $5 and up. We'll have access to that feed, since a lot of people $5 and up don't necessarily want to partake in some of those extra rewards of like doing gameplay or deck profiles and stuff with us. So so check that out if you want. Like I said, $1 for the mini podcast, which is a lot of fun. I like the mini podcast usually.
Yeah, and Joey and I actually just finished filming some gameplay, which will come out Tuesday. And then on the same day on Patreon will be kind of like a post-game analysis, going over some stuff after the fact.
Terrible analysis.
I thought it was pretty good. I think we approached.
I thought it was good too, but
Well,
I'm always very like self-critiquing myself. Like, wow, we didn't talk about like what cards we like, the strangers. We didn't bring up strangers at all. Whether or not they're better strangers to put in. Anyways, yeah.
Well, there's not too many options right now for strangers.
Yeah.
It's like you have 12 to 14 you could run based on the dual color you're running. Unless you explore more colors, then you have more options. And you're running 10, so it's like, which one are you not running 2 of is what it comes down to.
Yeah, well, to be fair, runes were very similar when they first came
Yeah.
out. It's just one of those things where it's just going to take a minute. Or it could be like also like runes where it's like, oh, you're still running those same 3 runes because those are super strong. So
Well, I expect with the new set coming out, AO2, that with Priscia being green-red, that we'll see at least one of her strangers being a green stranger and one of them being a red stranger. So that gives you an option for one more red stranger that you could run before you see her other dual color strangers that come out with her.
You know, what would be cool is if they end up coming out with master strangers that can only be tied to like a ruler or cost less with certain rulers.
I feel like they would have introduced master strangers already, but
Yeah,
who knows?
maybe.
It definitely
But
could be like the very last set. Could be master strangers.
If you guys are trying to like look at certain strangers to add to your deck, be sure to check out Happy Little Hug Factory in the description below, where they have the singles for the new set. And I think they still have some star decks left. They will have pre-orders eventually. They're working on. There's a little bit of a gap right now, but they will have pre-orders eventually for the next set. So I'll let you guys know when those end up going up.
A really clean transition call.
Yeah, you
I was trying to like I was waiting for my Segway to finish charging to hop onto that.
Anyways, next set, we have Machina, who looks like it might be the buy a box ruler. Looks like it'd be green-blue. And then you have the Priscia and Valentina decks. And Valentina looks like black-blue, and I believe Priscia is green-red. So
Yeah.
Pretty
something to
happy
look
about
forward to.
green-red
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe
One of my epic stories deck.
Maybe Joey will be like, you know what? Today is the day. I'm going to make that trip to Core TCG, pick up 2 starters, and me and my girlfriend go home and play a game.
And maybe you have some pocket change and pick up a couple boxes of BFA and CFC.
Since those are like $10 each.
$11 each at Core TCG, or they were.
I still have those little pre-decks kind of that I made myself that I need to play with.
Yeah.
So
but
after that, then.
Speaking of the new set, though, like a lot of the notes I had for today's podcast kind of came from our weekly. It was called Roundup, but I think some people want to comment saying call it Wrap Up instead. I'm not sure what the difference is, but I'm not opposed to it. We'll do weekly wrap up now.
Maybe wrap up's more universal internationally. Maybe Roundup, people are like, what does that mean?
Where are you
outside
from,
of
Texas?
the U.S.? I guess Roundup does sound kind of Texas-y.
It is a little bit. You could call it the weekly round wrap or wrap round.
Anyways, it would have been cool if on your thumbnail, Oscar, you said Roundup, and the Roundup was like kind of pinched in the middle with like a rope around it, pulling it. So it's like,
I think what we'll do is we'll do like a fake sticky note that just says wrap and just like over the word round, and that'll be next week's thumbnail until it's
actually
corrected.
really funny.
But a lot of my notes are from that. And one of the things I was telling Colin when we were going through ideas of what we could do to the channel to kind of make things more interesting here, and he was kind of burnt out on the news, and we kind of came with this idea for a weekly wrap up, and it's kind of just all the little bits of information from various card games, especially Force of Will, that we could discuss. I was kind of saying, like, I didn't necessarily want it to be opinion based, and I wanted like more of the opinions to be able to talk about on the podcast, and kind of like more theory crafting. I did mention what I'm about to say right now in the wrap up or roundup, whatever you want to call it, which was that I believe the super theory, tinfoil hat, that the Machina could resonators and all that way it's working could still be void but have the cost of green blue, which is just a theory based on the Vingolf 3 version of Machina. But for all I know, it could be wrong. They just do green blue straight up, which flows with what we've seen so far.
I would tend to agree with you in the sense that they're reprinting old cards from Alice Cluster, and so those old cards from Alice Cluster are void, buff void themes, interact with the void resonators, but they're not going to print void in the new cluster because that's just would end up snowballing out of control. So printing the dual color but having it be the void attribute lets them do, you have to have the 2 stones or the dual color stone and all that to play it, but it still interacts with those stuff they're going to reprint, whatever that might be, from machines that interacts with void stuff. Like say if they reprinted what is it called, special armor or whatever, can only be attached to a void and it buffs it +6/+6 and all that.
March of the Machines.
The corkscrew
or corkscrew. The special armor is the one that you destroy the edition instead of the resonator. If they reprint any of that, I believe special armor I don't think cares about void, but corkscrew cares about void.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
March
I think
the
they
Machines
would.
cares about void. So
yeah,
things like
and I was telling Oscar, like, that could also be a really good design choice between the past sets machines, which are all the Arthur Knights of the Round Table stuff, and these new machines that they do. Like, at the very least, you can make these new machines and what their card abilities are work with only void machines, so that you can't apply those to the previous machines. But it would still kind of mean that the Knights of the Round Table machines might benefit from more machine. These
more
new machine sets. But like, if you made a card that said like void machine resonators you control gain +10/+10, then you can't use that with your Knights of the Round Table machines. So they could definitely balance it, I think, in some way like that.
Yeah, I think it'd be exciting to see what happens. Was there a release date for that set? I didn't even think about it. Because usually, like, the way things go is, like, we get the tease, like, maybe a month in or 2 weeks after the set just released before that. But we already got teased for the third set with that Arla picture showing that is for AO3.
Teased. It wasn't on the official Force Will, was it?
It was not on the official English page, but it was on all the foreign pages, starting with Spain or France. One of them was the first to post it, either on Twitter or Facebook. I forget where it was. And then some of the other pages started to share it.
Release date is 2/21.
Okay.
For set 2.
I'm pretty sure they'll follow the same release schedule as last time, which I didn't. I have to look at the calendar and see when they started releasing anything, and assume that's when we'll start seeing the next set. Which is interesting, because like I just feel like we haven't dived in. Is that the right way to say that word?
Yeah.
For what we have now. I know me and Joey just started playing, and I feel like I want to explore it more before the tease of the next one. But I'm not posting new stuff either.
It's also like, because of the nature of the new set, there's only like so much you can really explore, like you were talking about with the strangers. Mm-hmm. But also inside of the decks themselves, it is a much smaller card pool, and because of the dual color on the cards, the card pool is locked to certain themes. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room until we get the second set, and then you can start better experimenting with the dual and even triple color decks, or monocolor decks once we have more options. But I think because of the nature of it, it's just like, it's not like, oh, here's 3 different ideas I have for Melgas. It's like, well, here's one, and the other one isn't even worth talking about, so it's just one idea for Melgas for now, type of deal.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say something.
Well,
yeah,
no,
I did too.
I was gonna make a joke about like Melgas dragons, but then I was like, No, it doesn't work. Like you can't play dragons with Melgus. Like dragons have to belong to Fushi, and his blue blue red dragons.
Yeah.
And like you can't put Melgus's stuff with Fuji, especially with, like it's interesting that a lot of you can't run the whole 8 dual color stones with previous rulers, but you can with the new rulers. So yeah, there's definitely a pretty big divide deck wise.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much the old rulers don't really have too much to work with the new set. I mean, there's the chant or whatever here and there, but on the whole, there's not a lot of modification of the older rulers, and there's not a lot of variety with the new rulers of routes you can go. So it's unfortunately just kind of locked until the next set, I think.
Older rulers meaning in New Frontiers, the Divinity rulers, right?
Yeah, New Frontier. Yeah, because Divinity can't use strangers, so that's all out of the window, and they can't effectively use a lot of the dual color stuff. So that's out the window. So it's just monocolor stuff that fits in with the archetypes that isn't worse than something they're already running, for example, and stuff like that. So that's like I think I pointed out like 1, maybe 2 cards that I might consider for my machine deck, and that's about it.
Yeah, like there's definitely some relevant new stuff with like Guinevere and Rukeg and stuff.
Yeah.
There's also super not relevant stuff like the whole goddesses.
All the Lennis stuff.
Like you can't slot that into other decks. It has to kind of go into Lenneth deck and other stuff like that.
Yeah. So along the lines of things that we talked about in the weekly wrap up is the CR was updated, which was quicker than we've seen the last one happen in. But there was, I think, some confusion just because the strangers weren't necessarily clarified 100%. But other language CR updates actually clarified a little bit better, which the German players, I know Chris, the Chris Forcible Weekly page on Facebook, was able to clarify some more information for people who may have been confused, such as like if a stranger was to go anywhere except for the main deck, it goes there. But if it goes to the main deck, it goes straight to the stranger deck instead. And this seems like more of a floor rules than a CR rule. But like if you're running a stranger, you can have a divinity deck, but the second you can't side out of a stranger ruler into a divinity ruler because the stranger deck exists. It's not like the way the rune deck was ruled, so you'd have a legal kind of situation there. So it's different things like that that were updated. I don't know if Colin had anything else you want to add to that, because like I said, it's opportunity to really let your opinions fly, man.
My main thing I talked about on our roundup, which was my contention with the constantly being able to look at your stranger deck at any point in time, I think complicates the situation and opens the door for possible cheaters in the game who are pretty sly about it. So I like, it's completely unnecessary rule that adds nothing to the game, and it would have been better just like your stranger deck is private, like just treat it like your main deck and your stone deck, and you're fine. There's no problems for the rest of the game. There's no reason for you to ever look at it. The same reason there's no reason to ever look at it.
I agree with that. Like,
why?
If you lose track of, like, let's say you've drawn 3 strangers, but you lost track of them, or you forgot what.
See,
that's your own fault.
No. My argument against that is the fact that none of it's going to the main deck. So there's no mystery anymore. Mm-hmm. It's all in open information areas. So if you're confused, check your discard pile, check your removed area, check your hand.
What if I just don't remember what I have in there? What if I don't remember what I have?
The same argument can be applied to your main deck. You're like, I don't remember what's in here. One sec, let me look at it. Okay, okay, we're good. It's like, you just should know.
But see,
it's 5 cards max.
Okay, but see, so the only downside to looking at your stranger deck is that you can cheat. I don't think that's
so picture this, Joey. You have option 1. You start the game, shuffle your stone deck, your main deck, and your stranger deck. You're done. You just draw the top card of the deck each time you need to draw a stranger. You're done. Okay. Option 2, you look at it whenever you want, and each time you have to shuffle it or figure out some randomization thing that you have to agree with your opponent.
You only have to shuffle it when your abilities tell you to draw a random one.
That's what he's trying. Yes, that's what he's trying to tell you.
That's why I'm saying you're going to have to shuffle each time you draw a stranger, or some other randomization process, because I don't think the CR clarifies shuffling. So you're going to have to agree on a randomization process with your opponent, each time you play a game, you have to sit down and agree on that. And like I said, it opens the door for cheaters who are like, okay, because of the low quantity, like 5 strangers of 2 quantity each, it's way easier to go with the small deck, shuffle, top card. Like, you can literally go watch the world stream of what I covered and see how easy it is to shuffle your stone deck and have the card you want, the killing stone, always end up on top. And this is same 10 cards. It just opens up another avenue for cheating. With how strong strangers are, having a stranger, top deck a stranger you want, is way more powerful than top decking the stone you want. So that's why it, like, the minute, just even that aside, just adding the extra randomization alone should be like there's no reason. It's just 5 cards.
I don't really agree. Like, I would like the chance to be able to look at it whenever I can and be like, what do I have in here that...
Your rune deck, I understand, because you're choosing the cards. Like, I'm constantly reminding myself of that. Stranger deck, you're like, oh, what do I have in there that could be helpful? Doesn't matter, it's random. Who cares? There's literally no benefit.
It does kind of matter if you have to make a decision based on, like, a 20% chance that you're going to get a card, or, what if you need, like, a Swiftness Resonate, but you don't remember how many cards in your rune deck or your stranger deck has swiftness, and so you look in there and you're like, oh, I have 5 cards that have swiftness and 3 cards that don't.
So your argument is for new players to the game.
My argument is that at any time there's you want to know what's in there. If you haven't played it,
I want to know what's in my main deck a lot, but I can't look at it. I want to know what's in my stone deck.
Thing, and it's a bad argument.
No, it's a perfect argument because knowledge should be. You just have to remember, and it doesn't matter because it's randomized.
So why don't they let you look at your rune deck? You just
and
just know
almost all the effects are
deck.
passive for grabbing a stranger outside of the 1-cost awakenings. A lot of them are just passive of stuff entering the field and triggering you drawing a stranger. So it's not like you're paying extra, and that one time you do pay extra is 1 cost.
If you play your Regalia and you decide. You have to decide whether or not you want your stranger or not, or if a stranger is going to let you, win the game, or whether it's not. There's a lot of
Well, the stranger is always going to let you win the game. That's what strangers do. But I'm saying it doesn't matter because it's still random. It literally is irrelevant.
Here's the thing, though. Your only argument is that it's a little tiny, teensy bit less annoying to shuffle your deck.
No, that's a lot less annoying because it's not just the shuffling; it's the agreeing on the randomization, which may or may not be shuffling. You guys agree on.
Just tell them, hey, choose a method to randomize this, and that's all. I'm okay with anything they choose, so they just. So as far as I'm concerned,
it's like we had this pathway into the building, and you're just adding steps to get in, and it's like, why are you adding steps? The door was level on the ground, and you literally raised it just so that we had to take steps. Now someone can get to the top of the steps and kick someone down, and they'll get hurt, which wasn't a problem before.
Yeah, okay. I'm over it.
Oscar, your thoughts?
I don't even care. Really.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you anymore, Colin. I think.
I like.
What?
I think
it
just comes down to gaining agreement. Like, I stand behind that. Depending on the color of your deck and the approach you have, it's like you have 7 possible cards you're picking out of, and you're picking 5 of them. Odds are at 2 of each, so there's no difficulty in knowing what's in there. And I'd rather just gain agreement with my opponent saying, hey, I'm going to shuffle this and never touch it again and just draw off the top. Is that cool with you? And if they agree, then I'm like, cool. That's all I do for the rest of the game. Hey, I'm playing Caduceus. I'm going to draw a card. Cool? Yeah, okay, cool. Draw that top card. That's my approach to it. That's all I have opinion on.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'll do for sure.
But you still think other people should have the option to look at their deck?
They should.
I don't think so, but we don't have a choice now. So.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. They're going to be able to look at it is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just disagree with that. Obviously, there's nothing that we're going to do about it. Like, this is just what it is. But, like, I just think it was an unnecessary thing. And, like, I felt like it was very nice and clean before, and this just complicates it and adds unnecessary risk to it, especially with the power level of strangers. Like I was saying, like, the possibility of just, like, with the 10-card deck, it's just way too easy to shuffle the cards you want to the top.
Right.
Yeah, and I get that, especially with the whole recent cheating debacle. I don't know. I think I think cheaters are gonna cheat, and it's difficult for you to like. Yeah.
It's just minimizing it. Like you can agree on a different randomization process, I guess, if at the beginning of the game of like just fan them out and I'll pick one, and that'll get around it, I suppose. But your opponent might like take umbrage with that or offense, I guess, and then I don't want to deal with that, so I'll probably just let them do whatever they want.
I just think shuffling the deck and then just being like, hey, choose whatever you want to do to randomize this, just choose it, and then whatever they do, I don't really care. As long as it's actually random. But I don't know. It's just, I've never thought about like purposely doing things to make cheating like less easier and stuff. So I think I guess that's why I considered a bad argument, because I've never framed any of the decisions like that in that context. But
it's just about minimization. It's not assuming people will cheat. It's just like about like minimizing the possibility. Because odds are, I mean, like we play at our locals, and I've seen people cheat at our locals. We've seen people cheat at Worlds a couple different times. Like it seems like a pretty consistent theme. Like probably most local stores have at least like one or two people who are going to do that. So just minimizing it helps, I think. But it's not too big a deal if you're like feel pretty good about asking your opponent about changing up the randomization and stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see once if we play at our locals ever.
You guys have to watch them.
Yeah. And you can play on Untap with Joey.
Yeah.
Next is the Ruler League promos. I'm kind of blend that with the full arts having not texture on them. But this was something, and he's walking away, but this is something that he was very opinionated on. It's just the Ruler League promos right now that we've seen so far, with the exception of was it Major? What's her real name that's on there? Is it something or other?
Masaki? Colin?
No. What's Major's name?
What?
What's
Matoko?
Major's name? Matoko? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm probably mispronouncing it. It's been a minute since I heard the name.
Jeff will chime in.
She's awesome, though.
This was something that Colin was really opinionated on, with the exception of her. The Ruler League promos so far that have been revealed just been like the way the Ruler and J-Ruler side are, where it's like slightly altered art. On top of that, not being textured. Which have we had the Ruler League promos being textured recently, or have they all been non-textured?
Ruler League promos have never been textured.
Okay, I was double checking that. So then the texture thing is not necessarily an issue.
You're thinking of GP promos.
The texturing thing is more of an issue within the set itself. Like, you're pretty sad there's no texture.
Yeah. And my comparison between the reason promos is associated with texture is because I was saying that not having texture in the main set, now there's nothing differentiating the full art of the card and the full art of the promo of card, except a little bit of tiny different art, which is pretty much invisible to people who aren't aware of it. So it devalues the cards in the set that you pull that are full art, and it gets rid of like that cool incentive of getting an alt art of a card you like by going to your locals. So it's like, it feels like a lose-lose situation to me, outside of what Oscar brought up of making it easier to get some of the SRs that might be more expensive or harder to pull and all that. But it's that was the relation of texture.
I do agree with the devaluing. Like, you can already look in the past at like Caduceus and what was the other one? Odin, who have promo versions themselves, which make both versions relatively cheaper. Which it's interesting because I want to see people's take on it, because I can already see comments being like, "Oh no, it's good. It's going to help make my cards cheaper than one in the market." And there's the opposite side being like, "No, I liked that expensive value. It gave my cards value worth it." We've seen the same side of both arguments of those comments and posts in the global
from
group.
the same people.
It's like some of them being the same people, but it's just interesting because like I don't know. It's like just an interesting way to approach it, I guess.
Here branching off of that, I don't know if you want to derail it at all, but what is your, because going off of that because that's one of the most frustrating things is like people being like, oh, this is great, now it's super expensive to build your deck, and then when this happens they're like, oh, see, they're helping out to make everything cheap, and it's like, well, which is it? You gotta choose one. But like, what do you guys personally prefer? Do you prefer this more expensive secondary market? We saw with the last set and this set. Do you prefer when it's cheaper to build your decks, but then you don't get as much value technically out of your box because it's cheaper cards? Like, what did you guys prefer?
I personally preferred it when it was cheaper. Because, like, right now, if they were to be like, hey, the promo for March or whatever, February, is Athena. I'm like, ooh, the Athenas are full art. The full arts are cheaper now. I don't have to pay like $15 to get one. Hopefully I can pay like $4 to get one once the promos are out, or just go to locals and get a promo type of thing. So it's like, I am the one who is on the side of things being cheaper. I wasn't really stuck on the fact that my box had value, because how many card games... I feel like I'm just digging this hole here for myself. Obviously, it's card games. But how many times, I guess, I get... Because we're used to Force of Will. How many times within Force of Will can you say, hey, that box I bought, BFA, it held all of its value. And it's still holding it right now. It doesn't. So it's just like me accepting in an earlier point in time that my box had no value anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think there's a difference between wanting stuff to be cheaper and not having it completely tank like BFA. I think there's a better ground than BFA,
right, like,
a better example.
I was definitely going to say, like, I think the idea is that the box holds its value, and then they sell whatever's in there, and then it drops its value. Like when rotation happens, you know, they don't.
It doesn't even have to hold its value, just not be $10 a box.
Right.
Yeah.
Personally, I think I have like a bunch of cards from Magic and a bunch of cards from Force of Will that I'm never ever gonna sell, because I think I'm just too lazy, and so I don't care about the value of my cards too much.
That's
and
the
I
other
would
thing.
much.
Sorry, go ahead. I was jumping in.
I much rather prefer being able to buy and make a deck for $40 or $50. And one of the price points that kind of priced me out when I was maybe even considering going back in was like looking at oh my gosh, Colin, what's the card where you get to cancel the second card played for
Severing
free?
Winds?
Yeah, it was Severing Winds was like, I don't know, it was like $15 or $20, right?
Yeah,
So
it got up there for a
yeah,
minute.
like I wasn't even gonna touch that. Even though I was thinking like, well, maybe there's a fairer, you know, I could build my fairer deck, and then I was kind of like, oh no, that's not gonna happen. So I much rather prefer everything on the secondary market being cheap. But that's just, I think that's my opinion. I think as far as, you know, people who, I think that, funnily enough, and it's kind of like human nature, I'd say, as a little pessimist, but like when you have the cards, you want them to be expensive, and when you don't have them, you want them to be not expensive. And I think that's kind of how it just turns out. Like people are like, oh, I have this, you know, $20 card that's a ton of value, and they're like, oh, I need to buy this card, but it's $20. It's ridiculous. So.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also, I'll go back to the example I'd given a while back.
Real quick, Severing Winds is under $2.
Go back to example I had, which is when Joey and I played Airsoft, which, if you guys, it's like paintball, but more realistic and also better. But it's there's this group of people called Chairsofters, which I kind of was one a little bit. And they would just buy the stuff and build their guns and all that stuff, but they wouldn't usually actually go out and play. And a lot of the times they would build their guns, and once it's to a certain point, or they want to start a new project, they would sell their custom-built gun, use the money to fund their new project, so on and so forth. And so I feel like a lot of the people that don't like the cheaper prices are those collectors who don't necessarily play as much. Like, I got that a little bit with casters here, where I had the cards and stuff, and then Dylan Hunt, shout out to him, got an Uber Sylvia that was signed when he was at Worlds, and I really wanted that. So I was like, I guess I could sell some of my caster cards, since I don't like really play a lot. I just was collecting the cards, and it was nice just being able to sell like 6 cards, and I was able to pay for the Uber Sylvia in full. And I was like, oh, this feels nice. I like this. If I was actually playing casters, this is terrible. I hate this because the amount of money it would take. So I think it's also how involved you are in playing the game. If you're super involved in playing, who cares if you got your value out of your box? You got the cards you want to make your deck and go have fun. So, like, I get the excitement out of just opening booster packs. I don't care if I really got a huge amount of value. Maybe that's because I was conditioned from Pokemon, where you very rarely got a whole lot of stuff you actually wanted, as far as like the EXs and stuff like that when we played. But it was still super fun opening those booster packs and stuff and all that. So that's where I don't want stuff to be as cheap as tanking down like MOA, BFA, CFC, and all that. I'd like it to maintain somewhat, like some of the Lapis cluster boxes were able to maintain a little bit. Like if the boxes don't drop below the $50-$60 mark, I think that's perfect. And
yeah. Which is kind of sad because you got rid of a lot of your caster cards, but you were supposed to be the one who built decks that we featured on the channel, but you never did that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the cards I got rid of at least weren't ones that I used in my deck and wouldn't have been in a deck I ever built. They're more collector type things, or higher rarity cards for like a purple deck. I'm never going to build a purple deck.
Yeah.
But it's just I stalled on a lot of stuff. Casters was one of them, but a lot of stuff I stalled on because I just got overwhelmed with a lot of the different stuff we were doing. So I hit pause on that. I'd love to rejoin that because I really like some of the stuff they're doing. I don't like whatever printer they switched to, and I don't like that they got rid of textures. Like, I really don't like that. But the gameplay itself is really nice, and I really like some of the mechanics and stuff they're doing. So I definitely want to pick that up again, hopefully in the near future here, and build Oscar a deck so we can play some.
Yeah. And going back to the value of things, like, I'm on the side of like where Joey's at, of not selling cards, but it's mostly because like I'd rather just keep it rather than being like, I don't feel like selling it. That's kind of why I'm not too concerned about the value of it, and I'd rather have cheaper so I can pick up more cards, because I like to play when we did play amongst ourselves, like in real life, alternate formats like Epic Stories. Like, the last time we played Epic Stories was when Michael came down to visit.
Oh, in real life?
Yeah, in real life. Michael,
well, we played with the one guy,
San Martino,
at Mothership.
That's what I'm talking about. And
okay.
Yeah. And so when he came out and visited, which was a lot of fun. What'd you say?
No, I was just saying that I think Con was thinking of a different Michael.
Mm. Oh yeah. So I was trying to clarify his last name.
Well, and another point about you, Oscar, is you play a lot. You're like a hybrid because you play a lot, but you also collect cards, so you don't actually sell your cards that often. It's very rare that I see you try and sell anything. You mostly trade for stuff that you also want to add to your collection to complete your play sets and all that stuff.
I almost have all the rulers. I think the binders. No, it's not over here. It's behind me. I almost have every ruler in the game. Almost.
Who are you?
Not rarity searching though. But I'm talking about like the base of them. There's a few Valhalla rulers I'm missing. OG like Valhalla. One? Yeah.
I could give you half my like all the rulers.
You don't have no. I have everything except for OG Valhalla stuff. You don't have that. You don't have
like not. Sorry, I was getting Vingolf mixed up with Valhalla. I was like,
no. I'm missing like 3 or 4. I think 3 or 4 cards.
We're set on Vingolf rulers.
Yeah, I know we are. No, I'm missing like 3 or 4 of the OG Valhalla dudes. Some was there, but they're the more expensive cards. Like Loki is one of them.
Yeah.
I forget the other ones. There are two red cards which I know are up there. Siegfried is one of them, which is a white card. But anyways, I just like collecting it and holding on to it. I have a binder. One of the binders I had bought, which is it Monster Brand? I think it is. That's just complete stuff full of promos. There's no more room. I had to start putting promos into a box because I just didn't fit in binders anymore. But that's why I decided on the side of things being cheaper.
Yeah.
You also had drafting, which was referring to pre-release mostly, and the fact that I guess that you can't really have a good time drafting it outside of pre-release being sealed. Is that what you're trying to say? Because
just in general, it's drafting and sealed, so it's limited format. Yeah. But pre-release is an example of why it won't work. Like, obviously, you're going to go and play pre-release, but it doesn't work well in pre-release, and it doesn't work well, I was saying, in any limited format. And that's before you even get to the fact that there's no draft ruler, and that, which obviously compounds the problem even more. But I just don't think this set is draftable at all, in a fun way, at least.
It's the approach they took, which I kind of like the approach they took of, like, here's the 2 main colors, here's the 3rd main color. they didn't focus on the other two, but that hurts, like you said, the limited formats that existed for it, and that's kind of a sacrifice that came with it. And it sucks because that's like, I know that was for us a real motivator for bringing in new players. It's pre-release, and also nice new people came in. Now we have new people coming in. They're like, oh, this is really a weird kind of draft. Guess I'm running a white-red deck. That's the only option here.
Yeah. I guess I'm pulling out my phone to see what my ruler is.
Yeah.
And we did have players that would like only come to when we draft or sealed outside of pre-release as well. And so I have no desire to ever run a limited event outside of pre-release. Which sucks because I actually start to really get into them, and I really enjoyed limited formats in the last cluster, which I usually hate limited formats, but I genuinely liked them last cluster, and now I'm back to where it was before.
Yeah, I think it's thinking about it, I don't think there's ever been a good like pick and pull drafting besides the whole gem rulers, like that very first set was really good for it, and then the subsequent sets I think kind of dropped the ball on it just a little bit. But I really think that first set with the draft rulers and all those gem supporting stuff and then mystery counters and stuff would have been a really good draft format and like draft environment for people who to actually draft instead of just pre-release sealed stuff.
I would slightly disagree. I think the rune format was better the following cluster, simply because even if the set wasn't like perfect as far as like having all the best cards for drafting, or like you had bad pulls, it was always offset by the runes you would pull. Because I would draft okay deck, but I knew that all I had to do was have decent runes or know how to play the runes, and I could bounce back because of that consistency and stuff like that. And I think Oscar can attest, I started to actually not do terrible at pre-releases and stuff like that because I actually could build a deck around that. And I felt like the rune deck made it so you could build a deck even with bad pulls, whereas the previous cluster, you had the cool dynamics with the gems and all that, but it also depended on the box. If the box was very supportive of gems and like one other thing, then like all the other draft rulers are pointless.
That's why I was saying just that first set,
ancient, was it Ancient Knights?
Like the I think so. Like the other sets kind of, they didn't follow that same rule of thumb and weren't too well, didn't work that well. My only issue with the runes and stuff were there were a handful, I seem to remember there were a handful of dead cards that just wouldn't do anything because they interacted with the ruler or something. I can't remember right now. I'd have to go back and
there's no runes inside of the set that did that outside of the set where messed up and printed star decks. No, there's the master runes, but only their cost was reduced. They were still completely playable.
No, I was thinking about the very first set, but I'll have to go back and actually think about what I was thinking about.
Yeah, I can't think on the top of my head.
I can't remember right now. But yeah.
Your thoughts, Oscar?
No, I didn't really have anything. I was just ready to move on to the next.
It definitely feels a lot more dead now. I didn't even think about doing a pre-release primer because it just looks
pointless.
So
yeah, I can tell you it was 100% pointless.
Didn't do it.
Well, yeah.
I had no motivation to jump into that set.
It's literally just you're going to go these two colors. I guess if you come across this card, grab it, but you would have already known that if you saw the card in the booster pack, so it doesn't really matter. So it is, yeah.
So I was going to move on from there. From me and Joey started playing games recently. I definitely want to start playing some more too. I did a Lennon's tribal deck. He did Melgus. Colin, you're going to build something eventually, right? And start playing with us too?
Yeah. I'm going to build around the goddesses and stuff like that.
So kind of like what I did.
And slightly update my machine deck.
Yeah. I just want to see, Joey, your opinion so far, of what we've seen with Melgus and...
There was being sorry. I was gonna be like, I don't know, finish your thinking or thoughts. I felt a lot more, at least for Melgus. I don't think maybe not as much for Lenneth and Faria, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I felt like Melgus, when you got to play your Regalia, it was a lot more impactful and you had more choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly didn't mind as much the kind of cut and paste formula. Like, it's kind of something that you have to, like, just accept. Like, I really enjoyed playing my Regalia as Melgus because it's like, okay, wait, I actually have, like, 3 good options, and then I have one, like, option that is good, but it's only useful, once, because then I deactivate and then I, don't really use it. So and I kind of liked all the support and stuff, and the Regalias are pretty good. Like, being able to play the 2 cost, get your abilities off, and then rest them to produce your specific chants is really good, and those chants are really good too. Mm-hmm. So like this is coming out on tomorrow, right? Gameplay's coming out on Tuesday, but one of the game winning moves that happened had to do with heavily with Regalia, without spoiling too much and stuff. But it's actually pretty cool. So yeah.
I like how you worded it that way when you could have easily been a possible game-winning move is, and then explained it and not necessarily insinuate that it had happened,
Well,
and the gameplay coming up.
I want to talk about my own experiences, yeah. And
well, you are, but indirectly you're just saying, a good game-winning thing to do is.
But I didn't think about it like that. I was trying to be vague.
Yeah, it's interesting. The last deck I ran was a 60-card deck, only because I had plans on removing lots of cards from it. I think it was pretty good with removing it. There's some really good cards within Lenneth itself that helped answer to certain things that you had by just removing it from play without having to worry about if I burn that lion too much, I'm hurting myself, which that was a situation. But outside of that, it's possible removal cards for certain things like that, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, Lenneth had a lot of you had a lot more removal than I expected you to. Because it was basically I can play this 2-cost Resonator and she removes, and I can play this 3-cost Resonator.
And there were certain things that were really nice. It's I used 3 of my removals. They're in the graveyard. You know what? I gain benefit from playing this goddess who removes 2 cards from grave and burns one of his dudes, and then this card will grab that card for a movement area, and now it's ready to go. And tapped out on my will, but you know what? Tap Caduceus and cast it for what I feel is free. I'm going to call it free. For free, now remove whatever you had, Joey, and it's gone. Cool. Wipes his board or something like that. I don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of tricks you can do with it. That's pretty interesting. I like to see what, because I went super tribal. I shoved everything I could in there that had to do with the red-white stuff that it was introduced and reintroduced this set. I wonder what happens when you take it more, conservatively with what you're putting into it, and if it's any better.
My only thing for you is that I might have tried to play a little bit more into your strangers, because I think I got to play a handful and they're strong. They're strong and fun to play, and they're not too difficult to get into your hand.
That was something I didn't do, is just because I was really just trying to go with the whole removal burn stuff, swing in with big girls if I could. So.
Yeah, I definitely think some of my next iterations are going to be more focused on getting strangers instead of necessarily utilizing the actual deck, because the stranger deck and the strangers themselves are pretty strong. So
Colin, do you have any takes on any of this, or do you feel like you just need to start playing some games to really have an opinion on it?
Yeah, I think we'll also play games against you guys specifically, because obviously you're talking about your specific types of decks. So
I'd be interested in seeing Lenneth versus Lenneth. We can do that.
Yeah. See how that goes. Try that.
So hopefully you and Joey can record the next one gameplay and release that for the following week, or maybe just have 1 week with 2 gameplays or something. Who knows? we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. It's a pretty
Yeah, we'll
good point.
We'll continue the conversation over on the Patreon mini podcast side, but yeah.
Patreon.com/TCG Scrubs. You want to check it out, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.